you go through the different areas, be it finance, career, relationships, family, health, fitness, growth, spiritual, then there are some things that we can talk about and we can actually manage that you personally have control over on that side. And a lot of times that will alleviate some of the stress. And then you can start picking up some of these other skills to figure out how to thrive more at work as well.
Hey, healthcare providers, you're listening to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast. Hosted by myself, Erica, and my husband, Michael. We're an OTPT team that understands the healthcare industry's got some serious issues.
Inspired by our own experience with burnout, we've made it our mission and passion to help you navigate your career in healthcare by cultivating wellness, growing both personally and professionally, and advocating for a better workplace.
Whether you are a clinician or manager, new grad or seasoned vet, join us each week as we share interviews, research, stories, and strategies that will give you the tools to go from burnt out to your most lit up self.
Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast.
Hello, everyone.
I'm Erica.
Michael.
And Mike, do you like the smell of my mask? Can you smell it?
No, what does it smell like?
You tell me. It's pretty obvious.
Is it pumpkin?
Pumpkin, yeah.
Ew.
I figured, why not multitask and wear my mask and record this intro?
It looks so good.
As soon as I turned 30, right? Haven't you noticed I've been really stepping up the skincare game?
Masking it up.
Yeah, I
So what? Tell me what the point of a pumpkin mask is.
So these masks that I've been using are from this company called Banish, and you know that the derm rolling or whatever it's called that I've been doing, it's for my acne scars. So my mom got me for Christmas this kit from Banish. So I've been really sticking to it because now that I turned 30, I had this revelation that overnight my skin it needs to be
right. I get the roller because it's like a micro debridement kind of thing for your skin. But what
these masks?
But pumpkin though, what biologically is pumpkin doing to help your skin?
It's just really good for your skin.
Okay.
And it feels good.
Can't put it on the internet if it's not true.
What? Put what on the internet?
I don't know. That pumpkin's good for your skin.
So this pumpkin mask, it's good because it has natural pumpkin enzymes. Well, I hope it has pumpkin enzymes, AHAs, and glycolic acid to improve skin clarity. And it smells good. Well, obviously, I know that. I'm reading the description. And it reduces congested skin to help clear pores, improves dullness. I mean, whenever I wash my face after the mask, my skin, it feels better. But yeah, I was actually having a talk with someone on another podcast I love, the Almost 30 podcast. It's such an amazing podcast. If you guys haven't checked that out, if you guys are obviously listening to us and you like podcasts, Almost 30 is a great one.
There are podcast goals.
Oh my God. Seriously. I was going to abbreviate that. Sears, guys.
If you listen to one of their episodes, it's funny because ours is structured exactly like theirs.
I mean, they've been doing it longer and they're pros and they're amazing. But anyway, I was in their Facebook group and this girl and I were talking about how as soon as we turned 30, we had this spiritual calling to take care of our skin. All of a sudden, it would change overnight from your 20s to your 30s.
I had a spiritual calling to grow a beard.
Oh yeah, people love your beard.
I love it. Can you hear it rustling?
What's that called when you have the sounds and it's really soothing? You can do different sounds.
Ambient,
something along those lines. Yeah.
White noise machines, and it's just a beard rustling.
No, it's something else. People can whatever. It's not even important. But anyway, so I feel I just want to bring this up before we get into today's episode. I feel if you're feeling overwhelmed by your routine, yesterday I was feeling pretty overwhelmed because Mike and I are trying to do power down hours before we go to bed. And what we were doing, we were saving the dishes until right before we had to go to bed. And because we save the dishes until that time, I always prepare our lunches for the next day. So then that happened right before bed. And it was like, yesterday something clicked in me. I'm like, this is not clearly like a part of our power down hour.
Dishes fire me up.
Like, you don't like them?
They fire me up because I'm mad that there's so many, and then I'm mad that I'm doing it and it's so late, and I'm mad that like I don't have a dishwasher, and it's just like fires me up and just like makes me not ready for bed. So
do you feel better? So today what we did was, being an OT, I'm really all for maximizing and promoting healthy habits, roles, rituals, routines. So I decided that I need to OT ourselves and adapt or like modify our routine. So you wash the dishes right after dinner. So now we're relaxing. I have my mask on. Like we turn the lights
talking
down.
To our peeps.
Yeah, we're like, we love you guys. So this is like, because before we would do this and still have the dishes, waiting for us. And like, I like our agreement that I cook and I prep the food and you clean like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect.
It's just, I hate them.
It's just like leaving that till like the last minute to me, like an afterthought.
Yeah, it's the worst when I make my way to the bathroom to like get ready for bed, and then I glance to the sink and it's just full of shit inside of it. I'm just like, no.
I know. And then I think, oh no, I haven't prepped our lunches, and I have the same feeling. So, and I know because when we get home after dinner, the urge is to just relax, and then you kind of want to put that off, those tasks off, like they're going to go away, but they're not. And so I encourage you, if you procrastinate with certain tasks in your routine that are kind of impacting maybe your power down hour or impacting just the way you do things, I encourage you to take a look at that and figure out how you can modify things in your routine. How can you carve more intentional time to rest? Because we were like resting, but let's say if the dishes were still like needed to be done and all that, even though like we're relaxing now, in the back of my mind, like I can't relax. So it's not really productive way to use your time. So just like
yeah, you gotta power down.
Yeah, power down hour. So this is a part of our power down hour. We have the dim lights on.
Ooh, candle burn. Well, we don't have a candle burn yet
today.
Could light it up.
Lit up.
Anyway, you're listening to the Burnt Out Lit Up podcast. We forgot to tell you what you were listening to.
No, we said in the beginning.
Did we? I thought we missed that check mark.
No, I said that was the first thing I said, Mike.
All right.
We have a checklist in front of us, guys, because we're trying to be more organized.
We're all about your holistic wellness for healthcare providers.
But so, moving on into our guest, another holistic healthcare provider, TaVona Boggs, is a physical therapist. And she just is launching something new, so new that I have to like pull my phone. Okay, the Wellness PT Society. So this is like brand new. TaVona is based in Atlanta. She's been a PT for 17 years. So she's, she has an interesting story, and her epiphanies on burnout were something that like I just really strongly connected with, because burnout is a result or an outcome, right? It's a result of many problems. And we talk about that. We talk about like something that I think focusing too much on was just like burnout. But in my courses, what I've done is like I dissect all the possible factors that cause burnout and addressing those factors with different interventions. So now like moving forward, because I do those things in my course, the way I talk about burnout, sometimes I feel like I'm just talking about that end result. So TaVona and I really talk about like burnout. Yes, it is a result. It is a problem. But what are the problems that are causing burnout, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
And she has some other epiphanies. Her Thrival Skills, I love it so much. Thrival Skills.
Like thrive and survival?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. So
contractions are in.
What's that?
Isn't that called a contraction where you take like can and not can't? Isn't can't a contraction?
Dude, sometimes
is that not right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh God.
We're having another moment where like I just remember that
contractions are in.
So Thrival Skills, I don't want to give it away, but it's basically everything I neglected when I graduated from school and started working. It was the parts of me that I didn't think existed, or that I needed to take care of, or that I didn't think were important, or I didn't even know, like, for example, like personal development, didn't know. I didn't even know about that.
So like basic self-care stuff.
But it's more than that. I don't want to give it away. But it's like interpersonal skills, personal skills, non-clinical skills. You just hone in, and you're so laser focused on clinical skills throughout your entire schooling, and then when you graduate, it's like there's other things that kind of support your clinical skills, the unspokens, the unseens, the things that you don't really learn about, or maybe you learn about them indirectly through other things that you're involved in, but I just didn't. And so that's why, when I burned out, what supports did I have? I didn't have any. So it's really cool, listening to TaVona talk about these Thrival skills, and looking back and knowing that I was missing 3/4 of a pie, a really important pie. I had one slice of a pie, and I was hungry for the rest of the pie, and I didn't get it till later on, and now I got a slammin' pie. Okay, so if you're a listener, if you can please go over to iTunes, especially iTunes, and leave us a rating, a review. Those little things really add up. And
if you want a way to help the podcast, that's a hugely awesome way for you guys to do that. Real easy, just shoot over to wherever you're listening, iTunes preferably, and give a rate and a like and a comment, a little blurb about how much you like us.
Thank you. And, ever since I started my podcast, I realized how important it is to do that for others. So whenever I can, I'm writing reviews for other people, because I realize
it really does help. It's
really does.
Every once in a while we get a new review, and it makes us very happy to read it.
Yes.
Not to mention it helps us move up the iTunes charts, but that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have a Facebook group. It's there.
Yeah. Check out Burnt Out to Lit Up on Facebook. We got a group in there, and that's kind of really, besides Instagram, which is also a big place where we're active in, where we want to connect with you guys. Trying to get on Facebook too, if that's something you prefer. Search Burnt Out to Lit Up.
I'm getting back in the Facebook group scene. I was really distant from it for a really long time, but now I'm back in, and Facebook groups, they're cool. We just need to get ours going.
Yeah, we want as many places to connect with our listeners as possible. Instagram is one, Facebook is another. So hop on those places, and we can get the convo started.
Yeah, slide into our DMs, like I say every weekend, as long as you're not too creepy.
Yeah. So have a great time listening to TaVona's interview.
And see you guys later. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye. TaVona, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. I know this has been a long time coming.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I'm glad we've been connected for a while, and it's like a little tribe we have online with OT and PT entrepreneurs. So I'm so happy to have met you, online at least.
Same here. Yeah.
For those that don't know you, can you talk about yourself and your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to try to give the shortest version possible because it has been a super zigzag roundabout journey to where I am. I've been a physical therapist for the last 17 years. And boy, the long and short of it is I started in PT thinking I'm going to be an orthopedic physical therapist. This is what I love to do. I was an athlete playing sports and all of these kinds of things, and moved up into management, being an assistant clinic director there. And the turning point for me was when I got passed up for a promotion where I was basically running the clinic, but when the group director left, they brought somebody else in, which, I can't fault them because he was absolutely killing it at his clinic and he deserved to have a larger clinic. But the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when they denied me PTO to be able to leave and go see my brother graduate with his master's from NYU. And so at that point in time, I had a decision to make. And what I decided to do was to resign and start my contracting company, Balance Care and Wellness, where I contract myself and my services as a physical therapist to facilities that need help. And that it was a great, great experience for me because it gave me a lot more freedom and flexibility, money and autonomy over how I spend my time and things like that. But I do think there is still a cap, a ceiling that you run into. And so I started looking for other ways to use my brain and other ways to do things. And so through a series of events, I ended up getting actually a wellness coach certification. It was through some continuing education course that I took. And at the end, they gave us a wellness coach certification certificate. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. What can I do with this? How do I start this kind of company? Because I had already started the contracting company. And I think that was really what started me down this journey of online business, because I had already done offline business. And then I also went on to get a life coach certification. And really that breathed new life into my practice because I was kind of getting a little bored with treating patients and I didn't have all the tools to motivate people and figure out how to get them to be engaged in their own recovery. And so being a life coach, being certified as a life coach gave me those tools and gave me a little bit more excitement. Fast forward a few years, because I got that certification in 2014. I'm still working. I have transitioned from orthopedic outpatient and work exclusively in hospitals now and started seeing new grads 2-3 years out of school with $100K in debt or more, totally burned out, totally fried, not just hating life, just really hating it and thinking that they've made $100,000 mistake. And it was at that time, Erica, that I realized that I needed to shift a lot of the things that I had been doing with entrepreneurs and coaches in the online space to really double down and help my profession. Because the entire time I will always say, I love being a PT, but, right? So if you've ever experienced that, it's like, I love being a PT, but I'm tired of the commute. I love being a PT, but I'm tired of these heavy sick patients. I love being a PT, but I have too many patients to see. And it was really then that I started using the life coaching skills to help my colleagues by creating the Burnout Resilience Program at the hospital. And so that's one of the things that I do now at the hospital is help other rehab professionals. We have PTs, OTs, speech language pathologists in the program to really take their power back and take control over how they think about the situation. We teach them what I call Thrival Skills, and I'll be happy to explain that so that they can, because, and well, we can get into that if you'd like, but we teach them Thrival Skills because I think it's very, very important as a person, knowing that we're people first and professional second. So I try to work with people to treat the whole person in my coaching practice. And what has also come from that is all of my experience in health and wellness coaching and life coaching, where there are a lot of us, PTs and OTs, who are saying, you know what, I really like playing in the health and fitness space. I really know that the best cure is prevention, and I want to play on that side of the fence. So that is the long, short version of my journey to now.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I know that speaking from my own experience, I've been on some sort of roller coaster in terms of like figuring out I wanted to do something more. Like it was around 2015 where I didn't even fully experience burnout at this point, but I felt in my soul that I love treating patients, but there's more to what I have to offer as a person in this world than just my role as an occupational therapist. And in 2017, I also got a health coach certification at the end of a CEU too. So how funny that,
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't really do anything with it, but I still have the title, because it was just my way of exploring like what I can do as a person that has many, as people would say, multi-passionate. So for you, in terms of like getting into all these areas, what was the thing that kept you focused in finding your passion in helping people?
Well, I've always loved learning. So I think that's why I always took way more CEUs than I needed. I always tried to learn from other industries. I'm, a super bookworm. Now I don't read books as much as I listen to them, but it's like, how can I learn more so that I have more tools in my tool chest to be able to help myself and help others? And I think pretty much like you, Erica, there was just this sense that I am here to do more. I can help more people. I feel like I'm supposed to help more people. I'm helping people every day as a therapist in a one-on-one situation or 1 to 2 or 3 with family members and such. But I just kept feeling like I'm supposed to help more people. And I think that calling is what kept me moving forward. Like each thing that I did that I picked up was a breadcrumb leading me to where I am now.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge, important quality for many healthcare professionals is that need for learning, that thirst for learning. And I actually on Instagram the other day, I forgot who it was, but someone posted, if you're not learning, you're dying. Oh, wow. In regards to your career. And I got chills when I read that because it's true. If you're not committed to the lifelong process of learning and learning not just clinical skills, but learning how to be your best person, your best, every role that you have, being the best at that. So you and I love learning. I listen to Audible too, and lots of podcasts. Yeah. I know for you and I, we both have the same, we have something in common, and we both resonate with burnout and have been touched by burnout. So did you experience burnout personally? Because I know you mentioned you were seeing these therapists, these new grads experiencing burnout. Did you experience it yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I tell people my mission is to save as many PTs as I can from burnout, boredom, and glass ceilings. And I think it's because I hit all three at some point during my career. The first thing I think I hit was boredom. And when I got a little bit bored, I would change settings. So besides when I left orthopedic outpatient, then I went to subacute rehab, LTAC, home health, and then I finished in acute care. So I changed settings to keep the boredom away. And then when I had done all the things that I could do in PT in terms of settings, then it was like, okay, I'm kind of stuck. I'm pretty much maxed out at what I can make even as a contractor. And I hit that ceiling. And then it was like, okay, now I'm burned out. And what was scary to me, because I've been doing this for 17 years and I'm not even 40 years old yet, is that I hurt my back. And when I say I hurt my back, I mean out. 6 months, cannot walk, cannot stand, cannot sit, cannot lay down for more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what I'm going to be, am I going to come back to this? Am I going to be able to deal with the patients, especially any of you all listening who work in the subacute and acute settings where you have to lift the patients? And I'm thinking I've got at least 25 more years to go, and I don't know that I physically am going to be able to do this. And in addition to just kind of, I don't know that it was 100% burned out, because right about that time where I was looking for something else, I found life coaching. So I learned some of the skills to manage my mind and my perceptions and get better at talking to people and setting boundaries and getting my needs met. So I don't know that it was full on burnout, and I'm thankful that life coaching saved me there. But I definitely hit some ceilings. I definitely was a little bit bored, and I definitely was completely afraid that I was not going to be able to earn a living as a PT.
Wow. So did you hurt your back on the job?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I have hurt my back twice and torn a rotator cuff at work.
Oh my, it's not easy. We as therapists were very, and sometimes I joke when I was working in pediatrics that was my workout of the day. Because very active, and I've thrown out my back at work before, and it's scary. It's really scary because actually a few years ago I hurt my neck. Not at work. It was at home. It was from watching TV in a certain position. And then the next day when I woke up, I couldn't turn my head. And I remember going to work, working with kids and babies. And literally just the thought of turning my head would make me cry. It hurt so much. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
You know, so it's, our jobs are very physical. And you made me think of something that I've been thinking about for a while, and you just reminded me. You know, if there was a message that could be relayed in schools, in PT schools, OT schools, about these topics, like, what do you think it would be? Because I recently experienced being an adjunct professor. And so I've come full circle where I was a student, I graduated with my master's, and then I was an adjunct in the OT program. And I realized that we prepare students for clinical success, but we don't necessarily prepare them for success in life, in terms of like how their success in their careers. So like, what message would you relay to schools?
Well, it's kind of a challenge, because I remember when I came out of school feeling like I had been sandblasted or fire hosed with information, right?
Right.
So I don't know that it's something necessarily that the PTOT SLP schools can add to their curriculum, right? Because it's their job to provide us with the clinical skills for the profession. So maybe it's a job for the universities or secondary schools, but I like to look at it in terms of something that I call Thrival Skills. So most of us are out here barely surviving in work and in life. And I believe it's because if you think about a pie, right? You got the circle pie and you have 4 pieces of pie. And within it, the schools have armed us with a lot of clinical skills. And we go and get a lot of CEUs, and we take Con Ed courses to build up our clinical skills. The problem with that is on the other part of the pie is where what I call the Thrival Skills. So if you think you've got clinical skills, what do you have? On the opposite end, you have non-clinical skills. In the corporate settings and business world, they sometimes call them soft skills. Like your negotiations, your presentation, public speaking, that kind of thing. If you look at it on another angle or another piece of the pie, you have the personal skills. And those are some of the things that I've heard you talk about on the podcast in terms of self-care and what does that really mean. And from my perspective as a life coach, meaning how do you manage your mind? How do you manage your perception of what's happening? How do you manage your time? What are these things? Like, how do you manage your money? Those are personal skills. And then on the opposite side from there would be interpersonal skills. How do you engage with patients? How do you practice motivational interviewing, active listening, not taking things personally, right? Looking at things from the other person's perspective. These are, if you talk about non-clinical, personal, and interpersonal skills, that would be the biggest thing that I think that we come out of school lacking. And that's part of the big problems of burnout that I see. We're just spending a lot of time, money, and energy investing in these clinical skills and working harder and thinking that that's going to solve the problem when we haven't rounded out the pie.
That was a beautiful explanation and a great analogy, because I'm imagining just my experience with this pie in my earlier years and other parts of that pie. You know, I think people leave it to you to figure it out. But if you don't even know that they don't exist, then why would you? I didn't even pay attention to personal skills and interpersonal skills, and I was just focused on studying and being knowing, being successful in treatment. But then when it came to like the nuances of talking to people or managing myself, time management, a million things of that pie just were that's when I had that rude awakening of something. There's a lot of things that are wrong, and it took me years to figure that out. And without a guide, without a manual, just figuring out, okay, my pie, like what am I missing? And so that's such a great analogy. It's like almost like an iceberg where like you have like on the top is like your clinical skills and all the things you learn in school, but then at the bottom that keeps that iceberg afloat are the other pieces of that pie. Right,
because a lot of people will come to me saying that they're burned out, and one of my most popular posts is, we think it's work, but. And the reason why I think that resonated with so many people is because we think that work is the problem, but I had a client whose house was completely a mess and disarray and cluttered. And every time she pulled into her garage, she just felt overwhelmed by stuff. And so when she felt overwhelmed because she was thinking there's so much stuff to do, she would sit on the couch, eat, watch TV, or go to sleep, which resulted in there still being so much stuff to do. So when we were able to help her, really see that and start working on that, within 7 weeks, she had decluttered a complete house. That gives her the space and the energy to start thinking creatively. Like one of her things that she wanted to do was travel. Well, she can't pick up and leave with a whole house of stuff. If she wanted to do travel PT, or if she wanted to just travel, these things are still weighing on her mind. She would buy multiple things because she didn't know where anything else was. That was taking away from the funds that she could have used to travel. So I oftentimes, when I'm working with someone who's coming to me primarily for burnout and looking at what I call the wheel of life, there are 10 areas of life that we're looking at to see, okay, work is a big bear of a monster problem right now, because it involves too many other people and too many other moving parts. You have your managers, you have your coworkers, you have your patients, you have the organization itself, you have policy, you have documentation, insurance, and right? But if I look at your wheel of life and you go through the different areas, be it finance, career, relationships, family, health, fitness, those kinds of things, growth, spiritual. We look at these things and you're telling me from 1 being the worst to 10 being like nailed it, loving life, and you're giving me numbers consistently under a 7, then there are some things that we can talk about and we can actually manage that you personally have control over on that side. And a lot of times that will alleviate some of the stress. And then you can start picking up some of these other skills to figure out how to thrive more at work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's like a delicate dance between all the factors that contribute to burnout. And it's funny that it's so interesting that you mentioned the decluttering. In my continuing education course that I have for OTs, that it's approved for Florida and a few other states. Still waiting for AOTA. That's a whole red tape process, but I'll get there one day. But I do have a section of that course talking about your physical energy and how there's different types of organizing. We think of there's one certain way to organize a closet, organize your house, but it's how your space affects your energy. And if you go home to a cluttered environment and there's a lack of routine, or you have maladaptive coping strategies that are sedentary, and the way your environment is set up and your actions, if that's not supporting active rest and recovery and rejuvenation, then we have to look at that, because it's not either or. It's not, burnout is fully the organization or it's fully the individual. I think it's it's of both. Yes. It's kind of like, I think every person's burnout barometer is there's different doses, like a recipe. Like, we're just full of analogies here. It's like a recipe. Some people might have 3 tablespoons of bullying at work, whereas someone has 3 tablespoons of poor coping strategies. And I think it's just everyone's recipe looks a little bit different. So that's really interesting that you brought that up, because I think it's people like you and me that we look at this holistically, and that's very OT of me to say, but it's like very holistic approach to burnout. I know you were talking about some epiphanies you've had with around burnout lately, that you mentioned to me before we started recording. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, the biggest one was the one that I shared with you, was the Thrival Skills. When I was looking around and I was just like, okay, I'm dealing with all of these people. What is wrong? What is the root cause of the problem? And that's where I came up with that analogy of the Thrival Skills. So that's one thing. The other thing that I realized too is that I think I have been focusing a bit too much on the problem of burnout. And I tell people all the time, I'm a master problem solver. So now I know the problem. The problem is burnout. I know some of the issues, the Thrival Skills, but really what would be a solution that feels good to me, and really uses all of my skills, from the businesses that I've started, the health and wellness, the PT and all of that, and the burnout, right? So we go back and we talk about the Thrival Skills, and it's one thing to say, okay, well, you don't have them. And then a person's like, well, that's just great. So I guess the epiphany goes to, well, how can a person round out their pie in their Thrival Skills? And one of the things that I have noticed over the years is, besides loving to learn, is starting businesses and working through and building businesses has helped me to round out some of those Thrival Skills. And I think because one of the big factors that people always cite in burnout is a loss or a lack of autonomy, I think building a business certainly helps with that, because I tell people it's a lot easier to go to work when you don't, quote unquote, have to. When you know you have an escape plan, an exit strategy, or you have another way to make money. I think it also helps when you're working on starting or building a business, because you have to go and learn some of these other skills like marketing, branding, sales, negotiation, time management, building systems and things like that. So the biggest epiphany that I would say coming from that or taken from that is that I really want to, in this space of helping with burnout, my solution is to help more of the physical therapists and some OTs, we got love for y'all too, in this concept of what I call the wellness PT. In that this is a therapist who is not necessarily interested in starting a cash PT rehabilitation practice, but they're one who is more interested in prevention. And because wellness is within our scope of practice, and it also solves that problem that I had when I hurt my back, like, holy hell, what am I going to do that I can't get up and go into the clinic or to the hospital or the nursing home? It allows us to be able to work from home if we need to. And so that gives us back more control, more autonomy, more flexibility. That removes the glass ceiling, the earning power that we have. It also really helps us to specialize. I think about this. Now, Erica, what setting were you working in before you came out?
Mostly pediatrics.
Mostly pediatrics, in a clinic, in schools?
In an outpatient setting, yeah. Mostly private practices.
Mm-hmm. And I think about this, and I think you and the listeners will still be able to relate. When I think about this problem of burnout, when I'm in the hospital and I think about the internal medicine service or the hospitalists, they seem to be more burned out than the cardiac surgeon who specializes in LVADs or the neurosurgeon. And the reason I think, or one of the reasons, is because they are specialists. They can really go deep into their knowledge, and they seem to be more valued, more appreciated, more respected, better paid, versus the primary care physician or the hospitalist, where they are the generalist, the catch-all, the go-to person. And this is the other epiphany that I realized, besides, trying to have your own thing, is we as PTs and OTs have truly functioned mostly as generalists. And I think that's another reason why we're burnt out. If we work in an outpatient setting, we're getting all the patients, some of the ones we don't like working with. Whereas if we were a specialist, one of my clients, she has that same problem. And she's like, well, there's a vestibular therapist in the clinic with her. And they only see a certain number of patients, and they only see the kind of patients that they like. And that's because they're a specialist. So the 3 epiphanies that I would say I've gotten since we last talked were the Thrival Skills, being a specialist, and having your own practice. And in my case, primarily on the prevention, health, wellness side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember talking with Mike. We've talked about that so many times, where he talks about that role, having a specific role within physical therapy. He said, it'd be great if physical therapists, when they went out there to practice, just focus on knees, or just focus on shoulders, or just focused on a certain type, because mainly physical therapists are expected just to cover, everything. And he has, what's the word I want to use? He's alluded to that fact, as if having more of those specialties, it will allow you to, like you said, go deeper. And then going deeper, I believe, and in some of the research I've come across, going deeper has been shown to provide someone with a greater sense of purpose. And when you have a greater sense of purpose at work, then your work is more meaningful. And being a generalist, you can get a little bit lost in having that ambiguity of like, what am I really working towards? It's like I definitely know I can relate to what you mentioned there.
Right. I mean, and just like, I'm sure you talk about the 3 dimensions of burnout. Well, one of them being decreased personal accomplishment.
Yeah.
Well, you can't really be the best at anything. You're expected to do a little of everything. And that's what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Something else. Well, I can't remember, but no, I think I said what I wanted to say, about the roles. Oh, so about the wellness, your last epiphany, do you believe that moving forward, that OTs and PTs, that we're going to see a lot more online practices or a lot more non-traditional roles in our fields?
Oh, 100%. Just like when you had the young lady on, I always say it wrong. Yeah, how do you say Yotiga? There we go.
Erin. Yeah.
Erin with the Yotiga. Yeah. I think I was so excited when I heard that episode, because I think that she is right on the money with that. What we're noticing is, and I think about these poor students coming out with this $100,000 in debt, right? And feeling trapped and thinking that they don't have any other way to make money, right? But here's the thing that I don't think people understand about business and why the salaries can't go up is insurance reimbursement continues to go down. So unless you're working for an organization that's a cash practice that can adjust for inflation and whatever else is going on, if the rent goes up, they can increase the prices of the services. If insurance keeps going down and the primary expense of any company is salaries, personnel, they have to keep the lights on. So that's where it becomes our responsibility to take things into our own hands. We now have the doctors, we now have the direct access. And then the cool thing about being on the prevention and the wellness side of things, and you need to check your state practice guide before you quote me on this, but if you're listening, you want to read your state practice guide and see what it says about prevention. In the state of Georgia, we are allowed to have direct access without talking to anybody about it and without any cap on how many visits we can have with a person. Whereas if we're going with the traditional direct access for rehab that is a diagnosis-related injury or illness, then there's a cap. So that's another reason why I think prevention, health, and wellness is absolutely the way to go, because of that, because of the autonomy, because you can do it from home. And just because I think that's the way the economy is going to start going, in that a lot of people with the changes in healthcare, a lot of people are walking around with high deductible health plans. And what that means is that they have thousands of dollars out of pocket that they're responsible for before the insurance company will even pick up and pay for it. Well, if we start promoting prevention being the ultimate cure to illness, it's a lot less expensive to keep a person healthy and keep them from having diabetes than it is to treat a person with all of the things that happen once they get diabetes. So if we can start pushing that message, I think people will be a lot happier to redirect some of that money that they have to put aside for these high deductible health plans anyway, and pay us in a cash based or no insurance way on the prevention side of things.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Speaking about just burnout and that article that we were talking about that I had posted about a while ago on my Instagram, and I know this burnout generated a lot of buzz, the burnout generation. Do you? So for example, I compare my lifestyle to the lifestyle of my parents when they were my age and other friends' parents at 30 years ago. And I noticed just huge differences in the way we approach life and milestones, and I'm supposed to have certain things at this age already that I don't. And I think a lot of people feel the same way, because just the cost of living, and like you mentioned, we're in this $100,000 debt and all this. Do you feel like as though there's a generational component to this burnout that you've seen?
Oh boy, yes. And I think about it all the time. Like, what is different about this generation and the other generation? I don't know how it relates to the burnout specifically, but I just think we had to figure a lot of things out a lot quicker.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Like, I'm not a millennial. I'm the whatever is right before a millennial, right? So we were out playing in the streets, running around, riding our bikes all over the place. And this current generation, it's like, I almost feel like, and this is just my own personal opinion, I almost feel like the parents of the millennials maybe coddled them a little bit too much, and then when it was like, when you got to college, it's like, all right, now there you go, fly birdie fly, but you haven't made me do anything to prepare to fly. So that's all I can say regarding that, in addition to the skills. And who's supposed to teach those skills? I don't know. Is it the schools? Is it the high schools? Is it the colleges? Is it the parents? I don't know. But something is happening, and something is amiss.
Right. And it's also a cultural thing, just from where I'm from. Growing up in a Hispanic community, I know that the coddling goes beyond college. It goes until you get married, or even beyond that. It never stops sometimes. Just coming from just an overbearing, I don't want to generalize, but in my community, it's just a lot of the kids I went to school with, we stayed home even during college and lived with our parents till after college, and nothing's wrong with that. But a lot of life skills that I had to learn, and I can speak from others that I know, compared to others that are outside of our community. It's just different. It's just at a different pace. And I noticed that too, just being prepared to be an adult, hence the term adulting.
Which I love, by the way.
Yeah, it's such a millennial thing. I'm a millennial. I know millennials range in age. And then one of my coworkers I used to work with was like, "Oh, millennials." I'm like, "I'm a millennial."
Yeah, I try not to generalize like that. I just, for me, it's about looking at things with curiosity and compassion. And so whatever caused it, it's there. And so how do we overcome it is the next question, and I think that the answer really does come down to, okay, there was a young lady that I saw at some point. I think you mentioned in that post, the life school, and she came up with something very similar to that, where she brought together people, millennials, I believe, that she was like, these are things that I never learned growing up. Like, just basic money management and time management, and some of the things that they mentioned in the article about filling out the paper to vote, and just little basic stuff that comes with adulting. So she brought the people together, and in this program that I believe she did call the Life School, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that goes that aligns with your Thrival Skills, because it's those basic things that kill me sometimes, and I can relate. I can so relate to that article. Even having to ship something back for me.
Oh, it's a pain.
I don't consider myself to be a procrastinator at all, but it's certain adulting tasks that I just don't procrastinate. I just don't do them. Like, I just will not do them because they overwhelm me. Just the process of it. And yeah.
Well, so then my question would be, well, what about that overwhelms you?
It's the tedious nature of tasks that don't seem important, that like she says in the article, like, if I don't send those shoes back, maybe I lost $20, but but in my mind, I'm just using this as an example, but in my mind, that hour I could have spent figuring that out, I used to further myself with my business. I feel like,
of course,
yeah, it's like prioritizing.
So this is how and that's why I asked the question first before I just go in talking, right? Because I agree 100% with that. So here's the thing that I would drop is the feeling like you should, or that something is wrong that you didn't return the shoes, right? Because what I think about when it comes to time management and cost investment is, how much time will it take me to go wherever I have to go to return the shoes for the $20 or whatever? And how much money do I make per hour? So if I make $300 an hour and I'm going to spend an hour to go return $20 shoes, that's not a good use of my time. I could be going out making $300. Or I can have a personal assistant that it's their job to do those menial tasks, or I can donate it to a girls program so that they have some awesome shoes that they may not have been able to afford. So I think when it comes to those things that you procrastinate with, or the things that you feel overwhelmed about, to first stop and ask yourself, why is this bothering me? And when you ask yourself, why is this bothering me? And you know that it's because of the tedious task that I could be furthering my business, then you get to decide, do you want to continue to let it bother you for that reason? Or do you want to just let it go and say it's okay, and that I'm going to donate these shoes or whatever?
Yeah. Actually, I do donate a ton of things that this is a little confession. If I've bought something and I want to return it, what ends up happening is that I will drop it off somewhere. And donate it. Cool. because here's the thing about millennials, and I know we've shifted a little bit, but I know we like to see and we feel good about doing social, being socially doing social good, and we look to support businesses that are doing good. And I think now we're opening up conversations that maybe we didn't have before about what are the factors in that pie that, the life skills, the adulting things that all add up. How can we use that to support our living? And some of that has to do with better, have a financial wellness, and being involved in volunteering, and even dropping off the shoes, for example, at what's it called, at an organization. Like, all these things, I think millennials and people just in this day and age now, we're looking to live smarter, and we're realizing that it's work, like you mentioned before, work is a huge component of it, but what are the things in our lives that are supporting our wellness?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. I want to end in a little bit. I want to ask you, I want to end with, what do you think is one of your most favorite Thrival skills that has truly made an impact in your life, and you see is making an impact in others' lives?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I want to end in a little bit. I want to ask you, I want to end with, what do you think is one of your most favorite Thrival skills that has truly made an impact in your life, and you see is making an impact in others' lives?
Yeah.
100% my ability to decide how I want to think and feel about any situation or circumstance in my life.
So having autonomy over your choices and feeling as if you are the driver of your own life.
Well, yes, of course. Yes, I am the driver of this bus here called TaVona's life. But when I say having the ability to choose how I think or feel about any situation or circumstance in my life, I mean, for example, how I got the Burnout Resilience Program approved in the hospital was people were burned out and I wanted to get this program approved. So what I thought about that was, we need this. And then when I thought that we needed, I felt very determined. And when I was determined because I was thinking we needed this, then what I did was, it didn't matter. It took 6 meetings. And every time I wrote a 6-page proposal, I made follow-up emails. We had follow-up appointments, everything that I brought white papers in, everything that he asked, I brought, because I was determined, because I was thinking I need this. And the result being, we got the program. Now let's contrast this with what I see happening a lot of times when people bring up ideas to their manager or in an organization. Their thought about it is, they don't listen to my ideas. So when they're choosing to think that they don't listen to my ideas, then they feel defeated. And when they're feeling defeated because they think they don't listen to my ideas, what they do is they don't continue to share. They don't try to do a follow-up email. They don't try to bring in somebody else. They don't try to bring in research, white papers, write a proposal, follow-up email, or anything like that. And then the result is their idea doesn't get implemented. The problem with that thinking is they chose to think they don't listen to my ideas, forgetting that in one particular instance that I've had, that manager had 68 direct reports. So if you have 68 people talking to you and all they're doing is talking, nobody's following, nobody has a paper trail or is following up or reminding you or anything else like that, it may not be that they didn't listen to your ideas, they may have forgotten. So what I just walked you through in the way I was trained in life coaching is called the thought model. And in it, we get to swap out how we think about certain situations. And those thoughts either make us feel in a positive manner that yields positive action and positive results, or in a negative manner that leads to negative action or inaction and negative results. So that would be the biggest thrival skill that I've ever learned, that has been, bar none, the most helpful in my life.
Yeah, I can relate to that 100%. It's that's something that I've learned, and it's being relying on yourself and knowing that in life, what entrepreneurship has taught me is exactly what you're talking about, and I just so happen to learn it through entrepreneurship. And these all or nothing thoughts are devastating, because you're not taking into account this person is busy today. It does not mean you are a bad therapist or that you've done something bad. And I think we talk in those terms like, I'm never gonna move up, or they're never gonna listen to me. And it's these general statements, all or nothing, where it's like you said, it leads a person to take inaction, not to follow up. And this whole being self-reliant, I've realized, being flexible, adapting your approach, following up, when you're determined, nothing's going to stop you, and having your mindset on point as a foundation is everything.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something very important. So if people are listening to this, and if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, it does make sense what they're saying. I might need to work on my personal or my interpersonal skills or my non-clinical skills. And you're like, well, how can I round out the pie? The fastest way, in my opinion, to do that is to become an entrepreneur. because you are going to have to pick up those skills very quickly on the job training kind of thing. You can absolutely go out there and get take a motivational interviewing class. You can take a time management class. You can take a, mindset class. You can do all of these things. But if you want to really be, dumped in the deep end or figure it out quickly, become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. I've learned a lot of things. I made a lot of mistakes, but failing forward. I believe in that. I believe in failing forward and learning from your mistakes and moving your momentum along. And that's the best lesson. Life is the best lesson.
Yes, indeed.
So
is entrepreneurship.
Yes, absolutely. So where can people find you and connect with you?
There are a couple of places. I love people to reach out to me through email. They can reach me at TaVonaDenise@gmail.com. They can also find me at TaVona Denise on Facebook and on Instagram.
Excellent. This was a great conversation. You've hit upon many golden nuggets. I'm sure our listeners are going to love this.
Hopefully they're not overwhelmed.
No, I think I'm very, looking at things with this analogy, it sheds light on so many topics that just aren't talked about or aren't given enough attention. So I really appreciate your time, and I thank you so much. And I have one final question. What is your most lit up self?
My most lit up self. I would say my most lit up self is exactly who I want to be, that highest version of me that allows other people to be exactly who they want to be.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erica. This was fun.
Oh, this was super fun.